at Shakespeare's sonnets, let's look at early modern versification or prosody. That means how the Renaissance English line is measured. In other words, it's meter. We're going to do this by learning how to scan Shakespeare's poetry. Now, scansion is a good skill to know because it helps you to see on paper what you hear when you read a poem, especially when you read it out loud. On the Middle English portion of this channel, I described it as reverse engineering a UFO. So in other words, a UFO lands onto your desk and it sounds strange and it looks strange. So you reverse engineer the poetry machine that's landed on your desk in order to understand how it was put together. So what are the rules of Shakespeare's early modern poetry writing? Or what are the rules of iambic pentameter? First off, the system comes from Chaucer's Middle English tradition. Rule number 1, the line is always decasyllabic. That means it always has 10 syllables. If you count 11 or 12 syllables, you've probably run into a peculiar variation that allows for more syllables to exist even though they are not technically counted. Or you just have miscounted completely. And there are also other rules called metaplasms. We'll talk about that in the next video, that allow you to drop letters or drop syllables. Now, poets are always going to be looking for opportunities to introduce variations. Remember, poets are always trying to avoid monotony. They're not writing Mother Goose. Let's count the syllables. So long as men can breathe or eyes can see. Decasyllabic. So long lives this, and this gives life to thee. Each line is broken up by a metrical pause, which is called a caesura. Now, a caesura may or may not coincide with a grammatical pause, like a comma or a period, nor will it necessarily coincide with a dramatical pause, because that's the way you read the line. So metrically, the line may differ from its grammar and may differ from the way you wish to read it when you read the poem. Now, that pause or caesura will usually occur after the 4th syllable. This is from French poetry through Chaucer's Middle English into the iambic pentameter. Sometimes that caesura will show up after the 6th syllable. There's even a 5-5 line where after the 5th syllable there's a pause. This 5-5 caesura is called the coupe italienne because it comes from Italian poetry. The second one is the most traditional. You can hear it. So long lives this, and this gives life to thee. Here's the caesura. It happens to coincide with a comma, but you can't trust punctuation. This is a 4-6, right after the 4th syllable. The top one has a longer, the pause happens a little later. So long as men can breathe or eyes can see. This caesura is right here, and it happens to also coincide with the comma. But let's look at some examples where there are no commas or punctuation. Obviously, we're looking at Sonnet 18. Look at the bottom one under the screen. And summer's lease hath all too short a date. You can hear the pause. It's after lease. And summer's lease hath all too short a date. Count the syllables. And summer's lease hath all too short a date. Or what about the one right above it? Rough winds do shake the darling buds of May. Rough winds do shake the darling buds of May. The rough winds, we'll talk about that later, but the caesura is after shake. Rough winds do shake the darling buds of May. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then what about the ones on top? Well, the ones on top is that Italian coupe Italienne. Listen, shall I compare thee to a summer's day? The caesura is after thee. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And thou art more lovely and more temperate. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Thou art more lovely and more temperate. And those do not have any grammatical punctuation. Each line is made up as well of 5 feet, and each foot is made up of 2 syllables. Now remember, this is not the Romantic period. In the Romantic period, you will see trisyllabic feet. That means feet with 3 syllables. The line has 5 feet. Each foot is made up of 2 syllables, with each syllable having an accent that is measured as either being weak or strong, or stressed or unstressed. That weak, strong stress pattern is what we call iambic. Hence the word iambic pentameter. 5 examples of this weak, strong pattern. Looking at the beginning of the volta, the rhyme couplets in Sonnet 18. So long, that's weak stress, that's 1 foot. As men, that's a 2nd foot. Can breathe, that's the 3rd foot. Notice it is a weak grammatical functional word plus an adjectives or nouns. That's why it's easily recognizable. That's weak, strong, weak, strong. Or eyes can see. This is probably the easiest line you'll ever find in Shakespeare. Now, every English word has its own natural lexical stress. Natural lexical stress is the way you naturally would pronounce a word. Functional grammatical words like pronouns, conjugations, demonstratives like the or that, as well as verb endings and prefixes and suffixes. You know, all the words that you use all the time. And I'm also going to throw in is and do. All of these words are considered weak and unstressed. So and is weak, and thus is weak. This is just its natural stress. That means monosyllabic nouns and verbs, except is and do, as well as the root words in polysyllabic words, are going to be considered strong. Rough on its own is treated as strong, and winds on its own is treated as strong. When a word is put into a foot, it's placed into a relationship with another word or parts of the word that are being structured by this iambic rhythm of weak and strong. Usually, scanning will be really easy. And every, because every is strong, weak, and every fair from fair sometime declines. A line always ends on a strong to carry the rhyme. You can see also the caesuras right here. From every fair from fair sometime declines. By chance, grammatical functional word, noun, or natures. See, that's the root taking the stress. That's a grammatical functional word. That's a functional grammatical part of the word. Changing course, untrimmed. And there's the caesura right there. By chance or nature's changing course, untrimmed. Sometimes we find a situation where 2 weak syllables are placed in the same foot, or 2 strong syllables are placed in the same foot. When there are 2 weaks, one of them has to be promoted. Although and this on their own are each weak, once they are put into the foot, the iambic rhythm takes over. And this. And summers lease, those are the first 2 feet. And then here's the third one. Hath all too short a date. And in here, you're seeing the promotion right there. And summer's lease hath all too short a date. This promotion does not exist in Chaucer. Nor lose possession of, this is the foot, and there's your promotion right here, that fair thou ost. That means the classical pyrrhus, which is a weak foot, is not possible in the iambic rhythm of accent of English poetry. Stress is always relative within a foot. So one of the weaks has to be promoted. And likewise, in a foot that includes too strong, although rough and winds on their own are strong, within the iambic pentameter, one of them has to be demoted. Rough winds. The poem's already moving in an iambic rhythm. We don't have rough winds, we have rough winds. Rough winds. That's the foot. Do shake the darling buds of May. Rough winds do shake the darling buds of May. You can hear it. Or here. Nor shall death brag. It's not death brag. Nor shall death brag. Thou wanderest in, there's a promotion of 2 weeks, his shade. So in this line we have promotion here, and we have demotion here. Stress is always relative again. The spondy, the strong foot that we all love is actually not possible. That strong spondy, when caught up in the rhythm I am, cannot be maintained unless it's done through a dramatic reading. There are possibilities for spondy, but more often than not, spondy becomes iambed with one of the strongs being demoted. These promotions and demotions do not share the same stress value, even though they're weak and strong. If we were going to give the weakest stress the number 1 and the strongest stress a number 4, a pyrrhus or weak, which would be in your mind 1 and a 1, becomes 1-2 with iambs and promotions, and how spondy, which you would think of as 4-4, becomes demoted to 3-4. Let me show you an example. Nor shall, that's weak strong, death brag. It's a slight drop. Thou wanderest, because that's the root, the ist, in, there's your promotion, his shade. That's a stronger stress difference. You can hear it. Nor shall death brag, thou wanderest in his shade.
Alright guys, don't forget to like and subscribe and ring that notification bell.